Our motto this year is get her done in 21. So we're starting on that today. 2020 is officially behind us. We know that brighter days are ahead.
Breaking news today, Governor Jay Inslee just announced new details about a safe reopening plan for the entire state of Washington. He's calling it Healthy Washington. He says it will be based solely on COVID data. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Whitney Ward.
And I'm Tom Sherry. So here's what we know right now. There are only 2 phases currently of the reopening plan. Phase 3 and 4 criteria have not yet been established. The state is broken down into regions, and we're all in phase 1 starting on January 11th. In order for us to get to phase 2, a region has to show a 10% decrease in case numbers and hospitalizations and have less than 90% ICU occupancy.
You can see it, this map here right behind us. This is the map of the 8 different regions that have been broken down across the state. Here, Spokane, obviously in the eastern region, along with 8 other counties. Now, Governor Jay Inslee says the regions are not going to have to apply in order to move to the next phase. It's going to happen automatically, and it's all about the numbers. Once we do get to phase 2, it means that restaurants and gyms can reopen at about 25% capacity. Also, sports competitions can resume, but with limited spectators. Right now, though, we know that restaurants and gyms still cannot reopen. The governor says the important takeaways today are that we are headed in the right direction, but we're not there yet.
No one has been left untouched by the forces of this pandemic, and many of us continue to suffer in many ways. So we are not out of the woods yet, but we do want to provide a path forward for economic recovery in our state.
The governor also talked about the state's effort to vaccinate Washingtonians. He said that he spoke with several hospital CEOs and was encouraged by how many vaccines had already been distributed. The governor said a delay in reporting makes it appear that the process is going slower than it actually is. Tomorrow, the Department of Health plans to roll out its Phase Finder tool to help residents determine when they'll be eligible to get the vaccine.
In the meantime, several Spokane County leaders held a press conference, this happening just a few moments ago. They're calling for people to join the local medical corps.
So that's a volunteer group that assists with various health needs. Our Casey Decker was at that press conference, and he joins us live now. Casey, what are they asking the volunteers right now?
Yeah, well, they're asking people to sign up to help with the COVID situation, and they're asking for volunteers specifically that have a medical background, like nurses, physicians, or people who can help with various logistical challenges like transportation, for instance. This is having to do with the COVID-19 response. However, they want to be clear that this is not because of any current emergency. This is a preparatory measure. They started talking about this idea of having these volunteers on standby about a month ago, and that was in preparation of the holiday spike. And then when they began to see places like California see increases in their hospitalizations, overwhelming hospitals, they thought now would be the time to ask people to sign up and join this volunteer corps in order to prevent a situation like that from happening here.
So what kind of tasks will these volunteers be performing?
Yeah, well, a lot of them will be dealing with patients, but not with COVID-19 patients. They wanted to be clear on that. These volunteers would not be treating currently sick patients who have the coronavirus. They would be more likely to be helping out with patients who have other needs, maybe helping people in recovery post-coronavirus treatment, so people who need help with day-to-day activities after being in the hospital, or people who need things like mental health care after being in the hospital. And again, a big one they mentioned would be simple transportation, moving people to places like facilities, long-term care facilities, where they can get assistance after being in the hospital. Right now, there's a lot of issues with staffing. They're making sure that these staff are well supported, because we've heard all year long that staff are strained. They've got a lot of work on their plate, and basically they're hoping that this volunteer corps can kind of take a little bit of that off of their plate and just make their jobs a little bit easier.
Well, thank you, Casey. That does sound like a good idea. Many hands make light work.
Absolutely.
Well, moving to Idaho now, public health leaders provided more information on the state's COVID-19 vaccination push. The state says that in addition to its own local providers and health districts, it has also activated a federal partnership with pharmacies to help get vaccines to long-term care facilities.
So officials also gave an update on just how many vaccine doses the state will receive going forward. Ian Smay is part of our KREM 2 vaccine team. He's live in the newsroom tonight to break down what we have learned from Idaho so far. Ian?
That's right, Whitney. Public health officials over in Idaho gave an update on their vaccine rollout. They covered who could be next in line to get their first doses, as well as how many doses the state has received and expects to receive going forward. First, let's take a look at some of the numbers. So far, Idaho has received 83,475 doses of COVID-19 vaccines. Of those received, about 20,800 have been administered to the first group in the last 3 weeks. This includes high-risk healthcare workers and those in long-term care facilities. Going forward, health officials said they expect to receive 20,000 doses a week consistently, with another 20,000 being held by manufacturers to make sure that the second dose can be given on time. Also, we now know where people can get vaccines when it's their turn. Simply put, you will get the COVID-19 vaccine in the same place you'd get any other vaccine.
But the short answer is really the normal places that you would go to get vaccinated, whether that's your doctor's office or your pharmacy. We'll be also looking at employer clinics, especially for those critical infrastructure jobs. That's essentially what's happening in the hospitals now, is we're doing them at the employer.
Officials say they've been meeting weekly to make recommendations about vaccine distribution phases to Governor Brad Little. One thing they said they'll be discussing later this week is whether to lower the age requirement for the next group of vaccine recipients from 75 to 65. Two things to also note. Idaho health officials say the number of doses they get weekly could increase as more vaccines are approved. But even with the start of the vaccination effort, it is still important to wear a mask, practice social distancing, and to wash your hands regularly. Tom, Whitney?
Well, looking ahead, tomorrow the Panhandle Health District will host vaccination clinics for frontline healthcare workers. The clinics are part of Idaho's 1A time frame. The clinics are happening in Hayden, Sandpoint, and Kellogg. This round of vaccinations will be for healthcare workers who have direct contact with COVID-19 patients. It also includes dentists and dental hygienists. Providence Health is now offering COVID-19 testing for people without COVID-19 symptoms. They want to give an option for people who need to be tested to go back to work or who may have come in contact with someone who had COVID. Testing results are available within about 2 days. Most of the testing is being done in-house. Providence is providing the testing to give the option for people who might be asymptomatic to keep people from spreading the virus without knowing it.
If a patient requires testing and for the community, they need to go back to work. They need to do other things, so we're here for them.
So that drive-through testing is going to be happening at the Providence Medical Park in Spokane Valley. The testing site will operate Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And keep in mind that no appointment is necessary. And if you were looking at any of that video, or maybe you were out and about today, you noticed a lot of the snow that we had is almost gone, except for the piles that are still sitting around. Tom Sherry is joining us now to talk about all the melting and really all the rain that's causing it, right, Tom?
Yeah, the stubborn piles, we'll call them.
Yes.
Keep in mind, though, I looked at some of the snow reports from last night at the area ski resorts. Everybody picking up anywhere between 5 and 10 inches of snowfall, so still snowing up in the mountains. Great news there. 39 degrees. That's the current temperature here in Spokane as you take a live look out towards Lake Coeur d'Alene. Wind is out of the south-southeast right now at 5 miles per hour. Look at this. We're seeing some light snow now beginning to move into north central and northeastern Washington, and rain, very light amounts of rain moving through the Moses Lake and Ritzville area. Still dry in our area, but this is what we expect. We expect to see the showers push in, and we'll look for the computer model is actually suggesting they might be late in the evening hours and then continue through the overnight hours. Mostly a rain event for us, but at the same time, some areas may get like a rain snow, meaning in the Spokane, but I do think valleys to the north of us and certainly the higher elevations will see snow in the overnight period. We'll look for rain and snow tonight with an overnight low of 34. It's going to be a breezy night as well. 41 the expected high, so we continue with this trend of above average temperatures, and again, mostly rain, I think, here in the Spokane area. For the weekend, I've got mostly cloudy skies, 37 the high both Saturday and Sunday. Overnight lows dropping down into the 20s. Whitney?
All right, Tom, thank you very much. Today, a federal indictment for the man believed to be responsible for the bomb scare at the Spokane County Democratic headquarters at the Teamsters building. 45-year-old Peter James Yeager of Grand Coulee was indicted for allegedly setting fire to the downtown building in early December. We've also learned more about how police say he planned that attack. Court documents reveal he told multiple people he had a bomb. He didn't, but documents say he did bring gasoline, a roll of toilet paper, and a lighter, which they say he planned to use to set fire to the building. Since the Teamsters building is used for interstate commerce, that makes this a federal crime, which could result in up to a $250,000 fine and at least 5 years in prison, but up to 20 years in prison. Also, independent charges have been filed here locally by Spokane County.
Wow. Well, on to sports. One of the biggest WCC games of the season is coming 1 month early for Gonzaga fans. Now, according to the WCC, the Bulldogs will play BYU this Thursday in place of Santa Clara. The Broncos are currently on pause due to COVID problems. Gonzaga was not supposed to play the Cougars until February 6th. BYU will travel to Spokane for the game. Tip-off in the Kennel is at 5:30 p.m. and you can watch it on ESPN. We'll be back with more news and weather coming up right after the break.